La vida es corta sin parar, mirar y de reír para celebrar. Cada momento hay que gozar, como si mañana no va a llegar.
Hola, hola. Welcome to Entre Tías y Amiguis, the podcast where we dive into the wild roller coaster ride of adulting. I'm your host, Adri Rodriguez, a queer Salvadorian native, a first-gen trailblazer, a multipreneur and licensed psychotherapist, here to share wisdom, stories, and real talk with my tías and amiguis and other incredible guests who inspire and uplift our community. I want to remind you that while I am a licensed psychotherapist, this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The discussions we have here are not substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Now let's dive into today's conversation and explore the journey of adulting together. Grab your cafecito, get comfy, and let's get started. Welcome to Entre Tías y Amiguis, a podcast dedicated to everything adulting. Today I have a very special guest, Bia, and she is an entrepreneur and a business coach and the founder jefa of Bia Boss Coaching. She's a former social worker who saw an opportunity for more and took this leap of faith into the entrepreneur journey. And it looks like you had your dad to kind of model after. And as part of this transition that you did, you went also to support your dad in his shoe repair business. You're a proud Angelino and a self-proclaimed introvert in your healing era. I am so looking forward to hearing about all the little bits of these pieces. But one of the best things that is always like lands really well with me is a señora in the making, because I'm officially a señora. So everybody that comes in is señora in the making. That's what we're here for, to like support one another.
Yeah.
Becoming señoras, right? And so that's exactly what Entre Tías y Amiguis is. I myself, I'm Latina, I'm queer, I'm first gen. And so I always kind of start with introducing those parts of myself as well as when I'm introducing my guests, because everything that I do, right? Like you're a coach who's also Latina, who's also a jefa, right? Like all your identities are embedded in like everything that you do. And so I would love to have you introduce yourself with like any parts aside from what I already shared. Whatever you think our guests, our listeners should know about you.
Thank you so much, Audrey, for having me on your podcast. Well, like you said, my name is Beatriz. Everything you said, podcast episode over, because that's all. Just kidding.
I already read it.
You said everything. No, but I am a proud Angelino. I am from South Central LA. I am a former social worker turned entrepreneur coach. I now have my own coaching business, and I provide one-on-one specialized coaching, focusing primarily around accountability, strategy, clarity, and mindset. And I decided to do that back in 2021-ish, 22. Officially 2022, that's when I registered my business, but I really started in 2021. And I wanted to help other business owners, primarily women of color, BIPOC, and queer entrepreneurs, because I identify with those communities. And I am a former social worker, so I want to, that my passion is to serve the communities that I'm a part of. And that's why I decided on the target demographic, and primarily focus on one-on-one specialized coaching. So it's a big leap. I'm very excited to be doing this. I feel very fortunate to be able to do this as part of my work and my career. And I'm excited to continue doing this and continue to build community. So thank you so much for having me in your podcast. And I do consider myself a full-blown señora by now. I'm 35. So I am definitely in my era. Like I'm in my healing era and my señora era. I love staying in on Friday nights. I love eating pizza and having wine and then going to bed by 8:39. That is my full self. I love it. It's great. Slow mornings, todo eso.
Life, the soft life. I love it. I think that's the best part of being in the señora era, that it's just like welcoming, like the robe and just being, if you still con mi café, mis plantas, like it's like the best. Like that is like the best part of being señora era. So I love it. Well,
Yeah.
so many questions. I just recently was a guest in your podcast and you got to know my story and asked me a lot of questions. And so now you get to be on my side or my seat because I want to know about you. I met you through Cafecito con Jefas, right? And so I've seen you grow in your business and I've been following you along from far away. And we just now recently finally crossed over, right? It's like, I want to know you more. And the more that I get familiar with your work, as well as I know a couple of people that have done coaching with you, the more and more that I hear about what you're doing out there, it's just really impressive and just really high quality work. And so I want to know all about that. But to begin, I am curious because I'm an MFT, right? And so you are a trained social worker and you decided to move into entrepreneurship and becoming not only an entrepreneur yourself, but also help other entrepreneurs. What inspired this leap of faith? Tell me the story of how did you decide I'm going to transition into social work adjacent? I could think it's like social work for entrepreneurs in a way. It's resource allocating, all of your skills probably come in handy, but tell me about that journey because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, every time I go back to the catalyst of when I started to do this, I always go back. It comes back to 2020 for me because that's the time where I think a lot of us, right? The world was in a whirlwind at the moment. There was COVID and a lot of time for reflection and pausing. And I, at that moment, was an administrative manager for a hospital in New York City. So I used to live in New York City for 8 years. And while I was there, I graduated from Columbia University, went to do my case management social work career. I really loved it. I enjoyed working with patients. And something that we talked about in the podcast that we did, Adri, is that I went into social work because it felt like a very multifaceted career for me. There was just so many different things that you could do with a social work degree. And so when I was doing my social work degree in my graduate program, I actually decided to do it in social enterprise administration, which is more focused on the policy aspect of social work, a lot of HR work, program development, a lot of program management, executive directing, building boards, building nonprofit work. And I really enjoyed that because I saw myself being part of work that was focused on a bigger impact on a larger scale. And so I mostly did that focus in my social work career. I didn't really do clinical, but I did. It was still part of my training. It was still part of my program. But the second part of my program was focused mostly on the HR, community building. And I was actually a community organizer for schools of social work in New York. And what we did is we would organize schools across all universities in New York City that had social work programs and we would supplement their education talking about anti-racism and privilege and oppression and systems that we worked in as social workers, because in our current curriculum, that wasn't a thing that we talked about. I was in school I was in my program 2014, 2015. And it was a big moment in the social work field to start talking about anti-racism in the social work field. And that really opened my eyes and my values, and it really informed my view and my perspective around social work and also around anti-racism work. And that is why I was doing a lot of community organizing. And when I think about the way that my career has progressed throughout the years, it really has been a lot around influencing and being able to community organize. And when I think about business and selling, it's really kind of close to organizing, because you are getting people to be part of your cause, right? Wanting people to be part of your cause. And so I really love that. It was something that I'm really passionate about, but it can burn you out. There was a big moment during that time in 2015 around Black Lives Matter. And so there was a lot of rallying that I was doing, a lot of organizing that we were doing in schools. And so while it was very fulfilling for me, there was a lot of growth for me. It also quickly can burn you out, especially in the work that you're doing, trying to be part of big movements. And so I went into my hospital career doing case management, very different from what I was doing in my graduate program, but I enjoyed that one-on-one. So I feel like I've been in very many different parts of social work. I was doing community organizing, but I've also done a lot of one-on-one. And so I've always felt this need to want to try and be in different perspectives within the social work field. And then when the pandemic hit, I had just gotten promoted to administrative manager. And during that time, I was very fortunate to have been working for a hospital. So I had my job. My husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but was my partner, had his job. So because we were both at home, two millennials working from home, saving money, we were fortunate that we were doing that. I went into a lot of learning about financial literacy and finances. I was trying to pay off my loans, but it also was a time when my dad was struggling with his business during that time. And so I was trying to figure out a way that I could both help him financially, keep his business open, but also continue my own journey of trying to pay off my own loans. And that really sparked a seed in me where I was like, well, what can I do that will allow me to still help my family, still help my dad's business, help myself as well? Because what I'm doing currently right now, while it is new, I don't think it's enough. And that it actually was a bit naive for me to think that I could just start a business and all of a sudden I'm going to have a second stream of income. It was not that easy. But that's where it all started. And I started learning about business and I was starting to figure out, well, what kind of business can I start? And literally started reading all the books and trying to find courses and podcasts and anyone who was talking about business, finding them online on Instagram or wherever. And that's how it all began. Is I just decided, well, I'm going to start a business because I want to help my dad and I want to reach my own financial goal of paying off my student loans. And that's where it all started. Still haven't paid off my financial loans, but it's okay. I'm on my way there.
Yes. Wow, what a fascinating story, because I think that even myself, as I'm sitting here, it's like, oh yeah, like I forgot that there's this whole other side of social work that is not clinical, right? And it's like nonprofit management and grant writing and advocacy and all these things. Like really, it sounds like you have finesse a way to use all your social work skills into turning into a more like a micro level of supporting like a business versus like a big organization, whether in the community or the private sector, that you collected all those skills and have brought them into helping people develop their businesses. And also your story reminds me of like Jenna Kutcher. She's also like a business coach. She talked about how oftentimes we're the best equipped to help like people that are like 4 or 5 steps behind us, right? And so a lot of the work that you're doing is also reflecting on the work that you've done for yourself. We're on therapy where like you can only go as far as the work that you've done with your clients, right? And so there is this kind of like parallel process that is constantly happening, that as we grow, we also become more equipped to help those that are coming to seek our support, right? But it is a very genius sort of way of like grabbing all your expertise, experiences, and then bringing them into this new just lens to use what you already have been doing for many, many years.
Yeah. And I didn't think about it in that way when I was first starting, right? Because you get so in your head about, well, what kind of product or service can I bring or create that's going to not only be profitable, but also be impactful. And the profitability and impactness of a business, it's because I never had the lens of entrepreneurship, it always just went to profitability, but I had the training to create impact. So it was kind of hard for me to bring the two together, bring the visions together, bring the skills together, even as far as figuring out what kind of service to create and what kind of business I wanted to start. And I remember talking to my therapist and saying, I want to start a business. I don't know what kind of business. I just know I want to start one. And she was the one who introduced coaching to me because I literally had no idea coaches existed prior to having this idea. And I started looking into that in the industry and what that market looked like. And that's where it all began from there.
That's amazing. As I think about, as you shared that you helped your dad, how did helping your dad also tie into learning about the business? Like, were you already helping him before actually going into your own entrepreneurial journey? Or did this like two things kind of cross over because of 2020? And I'm imagining moving back also to the LA area versus being in New York. Like there's something that happened there where you came in crossover with your dad. Could you share a little bit about that part?
Yeah. So I'm very close with my dad. And it's mainly because he's always been a big supporter of everything that I do. He used to help me pay my college, and he used to help me when I moved to New York. He helped me with moving there, and financially when I was pretty much, I moved to New York, never living there, never stepping foot there in any way, shape, or form. I literally just moved there. And he was the one that was supportive. And when I was down to like zero, pretty much, I had spent my entire life savings on moving to New York. I knew I could count on him. And so I've always known that he's very supportive of the decisions that I make. And so when 2020 hit and he was sharing his struggles, it really hit home for me. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And I started helping him financially. And I think during that time, there was a lot of stuff happening during 2020 that it wasn't just a time to reflect, but it also gave me time to figure out, do I want to continue staying in New York? I had been living there for 8 years already. And that wasn't the plan. The plan was to go to school, get my graduate degree, and move back. And it had been 6 years since that had happened, and I somehow had just stayed there. And I said to myself, I think it's time for me to move back. And I decided to move back in 2021. And when I moved back is when, thankfully, I had a job that was really supportive, and my boss was incredibly supportive, and they allowed me to transition my job over to LA. And I was working remotely for a New York-based hospital in LA. And so that was great that I still had the opportunity to do that. But I think in that time of me trying to figure out my business, I was trying to figure out my business, trying to figure out who I was as an entrepreneur, doing a lot of reflection. I had hired a coach during that time too. And I think I was having all these thoughts around what I could do as a new entrepreneur, as a social worker. Can I continue doing this full time and still grow my business to the level that I wanted to grow? And thankfully, in my time processing all of that, I realized, well, this is the time to take big leaps if I was going to make a big leap, because I don't have children. I am financially supported. I feel secure, and I do have enough savings to quit my job because of the work that I had done, figuring out all my financial goals during the COVID, and I had saved up money. I felt financially secure. And I was like, I think it's time for me to do that. And being back home, it was a relief, but it was also like, oh, now I have to face all the healing that I still have to do with my family. And I think it just gave me an opportunity to create a new reality for myself where I could work on my own business and work with my father in his business, learn from that experience. And it's a win-win for me because I get to spend time with him. And I hadn't spent time with him in 8 years. The most time that we spent together was, Christmas and holidays and coming back. And I think it was time. And my parents are old. My dad is 70 years old. My mom's 69. So I feel this need to have this time with them now because I know they're not going to be here forever. So I was like, I think it's time for me to live this life. I feel okay. I had to speak with my partner, obviously, about it, and he was on board with it. And I decided to essentially quit my job with the plan to work with my dad and work on my business at the same time. And thankfully, working with my dad, I worked with him for a year without pay, but I came to a decision that we came to an agreement a year later, like, okay, maybe this is working, but I need a little more. And so now I actually get paid. My dad pays me, and it has really helped. And that has continued to help me in my goal to pay off my loans, which I actually last month paid off one of them. So that was incredible. I was like, we're still on that road. And I feel good that things for me, have been a win-win so far.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I am curious about your healing era and the connection of moving back and helping family, right? And so we love our family, and our families are really complicated, right? And they can bring up a lot of stuff for us. And so what is that? What was that overlap of now working with your dad, having been away from your family for 8 years? Like you came back like a whole grown up, like you came back like almost a señora, or like at the beginning.
Yeah.
That season, right, that you're in. And so what came up around like that healing? Because the way that you're talking, it makes me imagine that you're doing like this entrepreneur coaching and supporting others with the consideration of also that we need to heal. The entrepreneur journey also brings up a lot of our money messages, narratives, a lot of experiences from childhood, right, that could be repeated. But then you right into working with potentially some of like the triggers that maybe you didn't even know that you had. What has been that journey of like healing while also working and managing this relationship with your family?
Ooh, Adri, that is a story that, yeah, like I enjoy talking about it because it is when I had started to figure out or trying to figure out what kind of business I wanted to start, there was a moment where I was like super unsure. I was uncertain, and I was like, what am I doing this for? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know anything about this. Let me just stick to my social work path that I've always been on. And at that point in New York, I had my LMSW. So in New York, that's the Licensed Masters in Social Work, which is still, it's like, I want to say ASW here in California. But you could practice clinically if you have an LCSW supervisor. So I was I had this goal where I was like, well, what am I doing? I should just stick to this plan, this career that I've always been on. Let me try and get my LCSW in California. So I was like, for a quick second, I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Let me do this. So I looked up classes that I needed to take for the LCSW in California. And I was doing them. It wasn't much. I just needed a few classes and then just get some hours signed off. I had enough hours that I was considered, basically, I just needed to take a test and just take these courses to get my LCSW. But in the process of doing the classes for getting my license in California, there was classes that I could not get through. I was just getting triggered. And I was like,
well, the clinical stuff, like
the clinical. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of clinical coursework that I could not get through. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't. Why can't I do this? I was getting so triggered. And it was during that time, as I was still in Brooklyn, planning to come back to New York, to LA, I mean. And I remember I had a conversation with my sister, and she disclosed something to me that I just was like, and I was like, it triggered me even more. And I could not continue on this path. And I couldn't, for like maybe a week or so, I couldn't sleep. I was like, what do I do? I felt so lost. And randomly, one random night, it was like 3 a.m. I was like, wait a minute, I have a therapist. Like, let me text her. And I text her and I was like, hey, I am getting triggered. There's a lot of stuff coming up for me, a lot of things that I haven't let out. And I disclosed trauma to her that I had like never disclosed to anyone else, and not even myself, right? And I had never even spoken it into the ether. And I was like, okay, well, this is happening. All right. And thankfully, my therapist at that point, we had been together, working together for, I think, 4 years. And she was like, I don't know if you recall, there was like, I did ask you some of these questions, and I honestly did not remember. I was like, I don't know. I don't remember you ever asking me, but okay, well, maybe I blocked it off the same way I've been blocking everything for my entire life, right? And so that really helped me to start on that true healing journey for me, where I really needed to figure out what that healing era looked for me. Mm-hmm. And she was so great. She really helped me through that. And essentially I was like, you know what? I'm deciding to move back to LA, and I'm going to see my family, and I want them to be part of this journey. Like they have to be part of this journey because my family is, I'm really close to them. They have to be. And so she helped me visualize what that would look like. And so coming back to LA was sort of for me a big moment for me that signified that I was ready to like really face some wounds. And so that really helped me and to get back on track. Like, I can do this. This is going through that journey and including my family in it, bringing my family into my healing journey has been so powerful. And it has really helped me continue on this entrepreneurship track. I was like, I don't want to do LCSW. I don't want to be a social worker. I mean, I love being a social worker, but I don't want to do this track specifically. I want to be a coach, and I want to start my own business. And thankfully, that little detour really helped me come back to this journey that I had started, that I had deviated from, simply because I hadn't addressed a lot of healing that I needed. And it doesn't come up until like when you're trying to do hard things and you're trying to like really figure out what do you want for your life, it comes up. And that's something that I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to face. It's not easy, but I'm glad that it's like I'm past the fire, if that makes sense.
But it's an ongoing journey, and so, something that's in my mind as I hear you speak is around offering ourselves the grace to be flexible with what we think that we should be doing in our dreams and X, Y, and Z that we've dreamed out, right? Because there is a part of how are you going to live your social work career? I'm sure that you probably heard it. I'm sure that people were alarmed, or colleagues, people that loved you. They're like, "What do you mean you're going to leave this?" Right? Because if people knew the amount of work that it takes to become a social worker, a therapist, to go into this clinical, you did all the things, but literally pass the exams, almost like it sounds like, right? And so. Even in there, though, there could have been like this attractive, like this kind of pull, like a magnet. Stay on the track that you've always been. Be a good kid. Be a good daughter. Everybody sacrifices for you. ¿Para qué fuiste a la escuela? Right? Like all these messages. And what I admire about kind of this part that you're sharing with all of us is around how do you follow your intuition and your inner truth, right? And then sometimes when it doesn't get clear, the importance of having somebody like a therapist, your partner, people that are going to be looking out for you, and that even if the feedback is hard, or even if the realizations of what the work that needs to get done is really hard, that it sounds like you have remained flexible and gracious and open to allowing the flow, your journey to just sort of become, versus like forcing to stay yourself in a lane that had already been predetermined at a different stage of your life, right? Because the person who decided to go to grad school to become a social worker and the person that you are now, right? Like they're the same person, but there's like two versions of it. And so can it be okay as we go through our journey, whether it's entrepreneurship or our advancement in our career? How do we remain flexible and also paying attention, right, to like what is in front of us and what is the next step in the journey that keeps showing up that we may be ignoring because we're just too stuck in the path that we're supposed to be taking versus the path that is in front of us?
Yeah. It's really, for me, has been about listening to my body, really listening to me and my body and what I need. And it's something that, because I have chosen or have taken this step to try things on my own, even though it's very, very difficult, it really, I feel like it forced me to be like, no, there's something physical happening right now where you literally cannot move forward with this decision. Something needs to be addressed here. And I had to listen to that and figure that out first before moving. And so I think this journey, when you're really in this space of trying to figure out what you want to create for your life, what you want to create for your community, and what you see yourself doing, it's not just, it's about really figuring out what does it look like to listen to yourself, and then what does it look like to then tell yourself it's okay, like almost inner parenting yourself, like it's okay. You got this. We're going to figure this out, and we'll go through the motions. We'll go through the fire, and you're going to be okay. And so that's what I've learned to do in this journey, which has been mostly, I would say, emotionally, more of an emotional roller coaster than like a, I don't know what a like financial roller coaster, because there's financial struggles there too, right? But it's been more about figuring out how to listen to me and what I need and my intuition.
Yeah, it makes me think a little bit about my own journey. And when I shared in your podcast, right, of like, I had this very predetermined idea of what I was supposed to be doing, right? And then I get to the place that I always thought I was going to get. And it's like, but wait a minute, but is this what I want to be doing? Right. And then to be able to have the self-awareness, like, I'm so grateful that I was able to kind of like you to say like, but wait, like, what is this? What is this thing that keeps coming up, and what do I need? And give ourselves the opportunity to listen to that and to tend to it and to healed through becoming an entrepreneur? Like that is, it sounds so strange to say to people, because a lot of folks, when they ask me about my business or they have curiosities, they always point out that I always look really busy, right? And one of the things that I tell people is like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm probably busier than I've ever been, but I'm busy on my own terms, on my own pace, on my own capacity, in my own style and rhythm. And that type of busy is not the same type of busy when you're busy because everybody else wants and needs things from you, right? And so as I hear you talk, it comes to mind like this idea of this entrepreneur journey can both bring a lot of really hard stuff to the front that you're going to have to face, but there also could be a huge healing opportunity, right? If you stay attuned to what keeps coming up. And so from the professional side of now you helping entrepreneurs, how do you think this experience of, again, being like 4 or 5 steps ahead from some of the folks that perhaps, or maybe sometimes 1, 2 steps ahead, not even that much, because it is like a ebb and flow, right? What has it been like to support people, or for this to come up, the idea that they need to heal, or that their business is bringing up their like a calling, right? Like a pay attention to something. How are you using this knowledge that you have around healing through being an entrepreneur? And how do you give that back to clients? Just a little bit on that.
Yeah. Well, as a social worker, because I did a lot of one-on-one work when I was doing case management. Prior to being an administrative manager, I was doing a lot of one-on-one work. And in that process, it's really, when I think back to that time, it brings up a lot of the skills that I was using there to inform the skills that I'm using now with my clients. Like a lot of the things that were coming up there is people are not ready to receive advice or tips or strategies or anything that's going to help them, what you think is going to help them, unless they're in that space to receive it, right? Unless they're in the space for you to meet them where they're at, right? And so it was a lot of getting to know them, building that rapport, right? Trying to create a picture based off of the information that they're telling you, and then doing your best to go into your toolkit, into your toolbox, and bringing out whatever you think would be best in this situation. That was my work with case management with patients. And when I think about my work with my clients now as a coach and an entrepreneur, a lot of the same skills come up, because for me, I mean, that's just the way that I work. I enjoy getting to know my clients first, and it gives me information as to where they're at in their journey. What are their challenges like logistical, or are their challenges internal? Is it something that they're like there's chatter in their head, or is it something that they're really struggling with that they just like don't know how to apply into their business? Maybe they've learned something and they just like don't know how it even applies in their business right now. And we have to do some sort of reflective work to figure out where is that coming from? Where's that block coming from? Where's this block from decision making coming from? What does that look like? And then we can get into, okay, so if this is the root of this problem, what are the things that you can employ, that you already have, that you can use in your journey to move forward? And so it looks a little different, but it's still the same work for me the way that I see it. And I think for me, I'm I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit, but I've always felt like I was a really good social worker when I was working with patients. And it was sort of, to be honest, when I was doing work with clients as a coach and business coach, I'm like, oh my God, who's going to take me seriously? I've never really started a business, right? I know about business, and now I run and work in my father's business and I do that, but like, is that enough? But then you realize that it's you can learn all the things, the strategies, everything, and read about it in books and hear about it on podcasts. But if you're not in the space to figure out how it applies to you and your business and where you're at with your own capabilities and your own mindset about what you can do, there's not much that we can do to move forward. We have to do that work first. And so that's the way that I see it when we're like in this space together. And I'm like, I'm not a therapist, right? With my coaching clients that I do now with the entrepreneurs and clients that I work with, I let them know, like, I'm not a therapist. I am not a counselor. Like, yes, I have the skills, but here's the problem from the context and perspective of business and entrepreneurship and where you're at. And this is how we can tackle it from this perspective. And I have to be very clear with that, because like I said, I'm not providing therapy. I don't have like my license. It's not like literal therapy but actually some people have called it therapy for my business.
I was just thinking, like, because I have worked with so many case managers through the years, right? I have worked with social workers. Like, has been like a big chunk of my training has been along with social workers. And so as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, no, this is just like case management for your business. It's just this is resource mapping, and then this is what the barriers are, and then this is the assessment of like the things, like all of the things that we do when we're doing case management and like mental health or community work. I hear you doing them with this like lens of coaching, and I think it's really, really cool. And I would say that just like even when we're doing couples therapy, right? Like the individuals that are participating in the couple are not the patients, but the relationship is the patient, right? And here it's like you're taking the role of like, who is the patient? And the patient is the business. And the business that you're thinking about how to support it, how to grow it, how to understand like the barriers. Like, I hear all the social work skills in there, which I think is just really, really neat.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's something that I've had to, like, sometimes it wouldn't click for me, right? In the beginning, I'm like, what does this look like? And then it starts clicking for you when at least for me, like, it was like, wait a minute, this is because sometimes you get so caught up in overthinking, like, what other people think coaching is and what other people's perspective of coaching is versus like what you know and what your skills are. And like, there has to be a middle ground where like you can practice the skills you've always had and the training you've always had, but still from a different lens, but it's still the same skills. So that's something that clicked for me after some time, after working with a few clients who were my beta clients and friends,
It's almost like you're the business social worker. Like,
yeah,
you're social work for your business. Like, there's like so many ways that like
that's a good one. I like it. Business social worker for your business.
Social work for your business. Like the resource like there's like so many things of social work that I think is really cool and really clever how you have been able to create a niche for you, like that uses all your skills and that still keeps you with the social work skill set and mindset of service and being able to have impact and create justice and fight the systems, right, through creating these businesses, because inevitably this is your values and how you have created, how you have grown to be. And now all of these things, I no doubt they're probably getting passed down into clients. So I want to ask you about your purpose. Do you think that you have found your purpose through your business and through coaching?
Yeah, I definitely do. I feel so fortunate to be able to do this work in the way that I want to do it, knowing that my main mission really is I just want to see collectively how we can shift the way that we view entrepreneurship, right? Because And I think that comes from my experience and my background as a community organizer. Like it's really about movements are about shifting it collectively as a whole into something better, right? And I think that the way entrepreneurship is viewed now, or the lens that we sometimes view entrepreneurship as women of color, as BIPOC queer folks, has been informed not by our own experiences or like our background or our family's experiences, but what we see in the media or what we see on TV and movies and in news and whatnot. And it's not informed by us and our family. And I think about this and I'm like, my dad is an entrepreneur, but he never called himself an entrepreneur. Like he always has had shoe repairs, has had several businesses, has built them, sold them, created new businesses. And I'm like, what? And he has told me stories of him fundraising and asking family members and friends for investing in his business. And I'm like, what? You did that? Like you went and like tried to get investment and pitched people? He's like, yeah. He's like, I had no choice. I had to figure out a way to survive. And I was like, well, that is what entrepreneurship is for me. It's like, it's not just survival, but it's like creating something so that you can make something better for you and your family and your loved ones and your community, and viewing it from that lens, and specifically like our communities of color, because I feel we deserve that as a people, as a community. So that's my mission. It's my purpose.
What is next for Be a Boss Coaching? What is next for Beatriz too as a person?
So I want to say I am so glad that things are evolving for me in terms of relaunching my website. Like those are just like some of the at face value things. I'm relaunching my website soon. I don't know when this might come out, but if it comes out before or after, like go check it out. Either way, it's up.
Send it.
Yeah. And so I'm relaunching my website. I do have my offers I have year round, and I've been creating new offers so I can make it more accessible. I have a digital course that's ready to come out, so I'm really excited that that's coming out soon too. And I don't know, right now I'm just trying to figure out what it would look like to build a community and have events and continue on this path of meeting new people and meeting incredible entrepreneurs and other people who are making an impact as well, right? I think that's what I love about being in circles and communities that, like, for example, where you and I are part of, is you get to meet so many incredible people who are doing incredible work. And that is what I love about all of this so far. It's just, I'm so grateful that I have been able to meet the most amazing, incredible women and entrepreneurs and BIPOC and queer entrepreneurs that are just, I'm like, yes, it just fills my heart. And so I don't know what it looks like from the Be a Boss coaching level. I mean, for me personally, I would love to grow to a small team, but you know, it just takes time, takes collaboration, takes community, building relationships, and I'm enjoying the ride. I'm really enjoying the ride. That's what I'm here for right now, and I'm okay with that. And so I'm enjoying simply connecting, building relationships, creating, right? Like podcasting is a new love for me. And that process has been something that I'm really enjoying, and creating that and building that skill. So that's what's new for Be a Boss Coaching.
Well, I look forward to continuing to see your journey and to hear all the impact that you're causing, because if you needed an outside, or if you not solicited, you are hitting the mark with your purpose. Because now that I've gotten to like talk to you more like in depth about what you're doing, I'm like, yep, I can see it, right? Like as an spectator of like the things that you're putting out, and it's really exciting. And the impact that not only are you helping others have, but the impact that you're having in this like ripple way is really beautiful and really exciting. And I do hope that you continue, because it is serving a huge need of serving BIPOC and queer entrepreneurs from not only the heart perspective, the lived experience perspective, but also like with the skill set that you have, that is like really about understanding holistically what the challenges, but also like the gifts that already are existing with the clients that you're working with. And so I cannot recommend you enough. Like, I've seen and heard some really beautiful things about you. So as we get to the end, what message would you like our listeners to take away from your story? Particularly maybe even around this unexpected journey of healing through becoming an entrepreneur, or anything else that comes up for you that you want them to take.
I just want to say, whatever you have in your heart that you want to do, I urge you to do it and take that risk and go for it, even if it feels hard and that you're not ready to face it. There has to be a time to face it and to listen to that body, right? Because if you are ready to do something and something is there where you're not really sure how to move forward, but it's there, I want you to listen to that. And for me, the way that I have named that for myself is like inner parenting myself. So I parent myself all the time. And that's something that my therapist has taught me, is how do I parent myself when I feel insecure or doubtful, like the little girl inside me that needs that parenting. And I that's the way that I talk to myself. And when I'm feeling scared or doubtful or unsure or something's blocking me, I'm like, ¿qué necesitas? What do you need right now? Let's figure this out. Let's take that moment to reflect and be gentle with myself. So I say, go for it, but be gentle with yourself as well. Just like listen to that inner self, inner niña, inner child that is there. They're very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Listen to your inner knowledge, inner niña. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing it. Well, on the show notes, we're going to have all the details about how to get in touch with you, how to learn about your work, your new website. Once it's ready, you're going to push it out. And I just look forward to continuing to be in community with you, Bia. Like, honestly, I have really enjoyed I'm like, why did it take us so long to connect? Because
I know
for a while. And so I just personally just want to thank you for your generosity of having me as a guest in your podcast, and for your generosity of coming here and also sharing your story with my listeners. And I hope that we continue to be in community together, because I want to see everything that you're doing.
Definitely. You'll see me around. You'll see me around. Don't worry. And I know I'll see you around.
See me around too. So, well, everybody, I will have everything about Bia on the show notes. And so please follow her. Keep, stay connected with her, because she's doing some really amazing work. And so until next time. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your tías and amiguis. Your support helps us reach more people and continue these important conversations. And don't forget to follow us on social media and stay connected. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself, embrace your journey, and keep living life with heart, vision, and creativity.